Oklahoma has everything we need to win: land, talent, family values, and a central location that should make us a magnet for investment. But for too long, we've watched other states outpace us, out-recruit us, and outbuild us. That's not because we lack potential. It's because we've lacked a plan. Today on Bold Ideas, we're talking about what it's going to take to unlock Oklahoma's full economic potential with someone who's already doing it. Dave Stewart is the Chief Administrative Officer of MidAmerica Industrial Park, one of the largest, most successful business parks in the country. We're going to talk about what's working, what's holding Oklahoma back, and what bold steps we need to take right now to become a national leader in jobs, investment, and growth. Let's get to it.
This podcast is authorized and paid for by Friends of Gentner Drummond 2026.
Today's episode is all about opportunity, specifically how we grow Oklahoma's economy, attract world-class companies, and build a workforce that's ready for the future. And when it comes to economic development, few people have more experience than our guest today, Dave Stewart, CAO of MidAmerica Industrial Park. Under his leadership, MidAmerica has become one of the premier job-creating hubs in the entire country, helping bring new industries, cutting-edge tech, and thousands of high-paying jobs to rural Oklahoma. Economic development is about more than business. It's about dignity, opportunity, and building strong communities. So let's start there.
Dave, so good to have you.
Good to see you again. Well, let's go ahead and get into it. Dave, you've spent years working on the front lines, doing economic development. Right now, you're at MidAmerica Industrial Park. And Gentner, you've been looking at economic development from a statewide policy perspective. How do each of you define successful economic development here in Oklahoma, and what does getting that right look like?
Well, economic development's a very complex issue. It can, depending upon how you look at it, it can be housing, it can be infrastructure, it can be a lot of different things. So it's easy to get kind of down a rabbit trail. You got to stay focused on really what drives business, and that's business, right? I mean, employment, capital investment. When you get it right, you have the right combination of all of those things to make it where a company can be successful, and then they can choose Oklahoma to locate. But it's not any one thing. It's a combination of all of the things that drive quality of life and that.
I think from my perspective, what we've been missing for 8 years is really a functional commerce department that can communicate with businesses and recognize and understand the needs, collaborate with the educational departments, career tech, secondary education, and really taking the macro approach and offering a potpourri of selections for businesses to pick from. And we're just missing that in the state of Oklahoma.
Right, I would agree with that. I mean, you've got to pick where you're weak, invest in that, and answer all that CEO's questions. Why would I go to Oklahoma? So I think you're right on point.
Let's shift a little bit to education. We've seen Oklahomans that graduate with a college degree to be in jobs that they're way overqualified for. Do we think that our current education and workforce systems are aligned with the jobs of the future? And how can we better connect our career techs, higher ed, and employers?
Well, yes and no on the future. We have AI that is changing the whole dynamic of business and education. So the integration of the AI into our future program needs to be, day one, important. As far as the coordination of all and aligning of all the programs, the issue is that they're all controlled by different people, right? And so when you have an organization that is controlled by different people, you have to have leadership and you have to have alignment and cooperation. So I think strategic alignment of all of those programs is critical. Otherwise, they're kind of in silos. And there are some good pockets of work all across the state. But I think the overarching need is, and then the willingness to make change. And once you figure out where the gap is, you've got to be able to make that change. And I think that's important.
I think my observation is we have a good workforce today, but we don't have a great workforce. Mm-hmm. And I think for us to have a great workforce, we need to go back into the educational system of our grade school, and have these children be reading proficient by third grade and math proficient by fourth. Then we need to explore how can we more fully develop career tech. I'm encouraged that Lyndall Fields is a superintendent of public education. He comes from a career tech background. I think he's going to help us dial in so that children are not graduating from high school with a big question mark on their canopy. I'd like them to either be directed toward higher education, or during their high school career, experience shopped, be made aware of career tech. And then what we need, what you mentioned with AI, that's going to lead to data centers throughout Oklahoma. Data centers are going to need pipe fitters. They're going to need welders. They're going to need electricians, plumbers. They're going to need everything. And that's really a great basis for making our good workforce a great workforce.
Exactly. And it also ties into the industries in Oklahoma. I mean, the jobs need to be aligned, and the investment in those curriculums, talking to the businesses. I mean, the businesses need to develop curriculum that they're willing to support, not just the educational system determining what programs are appropriate.
I do want to also encourage companies, and several are already doing this, where they come out and recruit young people out of high school into the career tech or into the trades, and provide that scholarship opportunity and just open those doors. I think our high school and middle school curriculum needs to be oriented toward what does the student need, not what arbitrary issue am I chasing.
Exactly. We found that we have 2,000 graduating seniors in our workforce yet. Well, 2,000 seniors, if you get 60% that don't go to college, that's 1,200 kids. Align them with your program. So there's plenty of people to work. We just have to get them early, get them aware of the jobs that are there, and then tie the businesses in. So high schools are critical.
Yes.
Shifting back is something you mentioned about there are a lot of good programs, even great programs when you look at career techs, workforce offices, nonprofits, governmental agencies, but often they're not talking to each other. You talked about the silos. How do we get better coordination across these agencies? How do we get a better synergy amongst all these folks to do economic development better?
Well, you have to get them all in a room and you have to get common goals. Everybody has to be ready to make change. I think that's the most important, because if everybody gets together and they develop a plan, we have plans on the shelf for years, right? Everybody gets together and they spend the time, but they're not implemented. So I think I would call it strategic alignment at the state level, because they all report different people, right? So get them in a room and say, what's our goal and objectives? Get them to agree, and then be willing to make change. That's what has to happen. Let's make change and cut through the red tape of the organizations and be able to work together to fix the problem.
I think that we frankly have a deficiency in leadership. You mentioned, Dave and I, we've talked off and on for years, where, industries such as yours have worked with state government to get a plan, and that plan is refined and printed and approved and never implemented. And that's a failure of leadership. I liken the leadership of our state much like I would when I was leading combat sorties. I had my 8 missiles on my F-15. I had 3 wingmen. That was, each of them had 8. So I had 32 missiles to deploy, and then my fighter bombers behind me. I think what we need is someone at the top of government that can pick qualified men and women in commerce, in the educational services, and coordinate. And when we spend hundreds or thousands of man hours on these plans and projects, we implement. We are failing to launch as a state of Oklahoma.
Right. And I think everybody's heart's in the right place, right? I mean, boots on the ground, people are making a difference in Oklahoma all across the state. So we don't have a lack of interest or a lack of drive. It's all about making sure things happen, right? So I agree.
One thing, infrastructure is an important part of economic development. And so from water systems to broadband to energy reliability, what do you see as being the most important priority when it comes to infrastructure if Oklahoma is going to attract new business investment?
Well, Oklahoma is unique, rural areas. We have such a diverse group or areas around the state that have different resources and different infrastructure at different stages. So I think the objective is to figure out where the weaknesses are and then fill the gaps, right? So some areas have plenty of power, some areas have plenty of water, no power. So when a company looks at Oklahoma, the first thing they do is they look at the site. I mean, if they don't have a good site, they're not coming. It doesn't matter how good workforce you had. It doesn't matter anything, quality of life. So getting the site ready and doing evaluation across the state of what is needed and then make investment with good ROI. You know, if we make this investment in this infrastructure, it's going to mean that this community has the capability to attract these jobs. But that's very strategic. It's expensive, but it's the only way that you're going to attract new business because they have to have it.
I appreciate your comment about the diversity of our geographic areas in rural Oklahoma. We do have an economic advantage over other states in certain areas of our state, and we have deficiencies in each of these areas. And we need to identify the deficiencies and backfill those deficiencies. We've got great resources in northwestern Oklahoma, southwestern Oklahoma, southeastern Oklahoma, and northeastern Oklahoma. We need to play to our strengths and collaborate as a state.
Yes.
Both of you have worked closely with tribal governments. Oklahoma's tribes are a major economic engine, from manufacturing to tourism to healthcare. How can the state and the tribal nations better partner on workforce and economic development?
I want to jump in with some thoughts, Dave. I want to go all the way back to our healthcare. So what I've observed is in Oklahoma, we have so many that are under or uninsured that they delay seeking services until they're Medicare, Medicaid eligible. By then, they're out of that workforce. And so we need to figure out how we can keep our workforce healthy. One of those ways, in collaboration with the tribes, as the chief legal officer for the state of Oklahoma, I've been grappling with criminal justice these last 3 years. And what makes Oklahoma unique among all other states is we have 38 tribal partners, right? We have 38 law enforcement agencies that can be collaborated with the state of Oklahoma. We do best criminal justice. What the tribes do well on a per capita basis is healthcare deliverables, mental health healthcare. And I see us using an opportunity as a future governor that can reach out a hand of fellowship with the tribes, and we can do what we do well, prosecute on behalf of the tribes, and that the tribes do well in rural Oklahoma, and that is take care of our citizens on a fee-for-service basis. So then we have a healthy workforce that can then be workforce ready to be deployed.
Yeah, when we look at the tribes, I'm Cherokee, and I worked for the Cherokee Nation for 10 or 12 years. So I'm intimately familiar with the programs. And the tribes, they want to preserve culture, they respect their sovereignty, but they also want their people to have a quality of life, and that goes with employment and jobs in some fashion. So the common goals exist between, when you look at economic development, as I mentioned earlier, it encompasses all of the different things that the tribes are doing, right? They all have these programs. So when we add up all of the resources that are going into the fundamental and basic principles of economic development, it's all there. Now, we've done that at MidAmerica. We partnered with the Cherokee Nation. They built a child care center. We gave them the land, and they built a road. I mean, it's perfect. They have an employee intake and career center at the park, right? So when we get a company that comes in, we say, not only do you have these resources, the state resources and ours, but you also have the tribal resources. And it's very intriguing. And it's almost like just having another incentive. I hate to put it that way, but it is an incentive for a company to move to Oklahoma because it provides stability. I mean, they're going to invest $200 or $300 million. They want to know in 40 years, are you going to be here? And we are, because the tribes aren't going away, the state's not going away, and MidAmerica's not going away. So it's a huge benefit, I think, to the state. Well, I know it is to the state, and we just need to use it effectively.
When I think of the millions of dollars that we have used as incentive to recruit companies into Oklahoma, and yet we as a state turn our back often on our principal tribes in the state. We've just recently read the reports of the Chickasaws, Choctaws, and Cherokees. Their annual budgets have been released, where each of them made over $4 billion last year. Those are huge economic powerhouses that the state of Oklahoma must collaborate with and partner with. And I'm excited about the opportunity to explore opportunities where the state of Oklahoma can joint venture, be equity partners with the Cherokees, with the Choctaws, with the Chickasaws, Citizens Potawatomi. We have great tribes here that we need to collaborate with.
Absolutely. Very sophisticated too. Very good business people. And I think they're going to be here for the long term, and their economic impact is so significant that it creates sustainability over the long term. So companies are looking for that. And
you made a comment I want to play off of. Canoe has been a huge disaster for the state of Oklahoma. Black eye. We wasted time, money, resources, tax credits, and we look like fools in the bankruptcy court of Delaware. As my office has been investigating how did we get taken advantage of, I discovered that, in fact, Canoe presented first to the Cherokees. So I went to the Cherokees and I said, hey, why did you guys not invest in Canoe? And they go, we looked at their white paper, we interviewed their leadership, and we passed. That was the last meeting we had. And I said, why? And I said, well, they were fraudsters. I thought, my goodness, why did we not see that? And so I think another development, you mentioned the sophistication of the tribes. They see things that perhaps the state of Oklahoma does not or cannot see. And I really am excited about having those eyes at the table when we look at big opportunities for the state of Oklahoma.
right, they're very good partners.
Well, you brought up corporate incentives, and there's always a debate about corporate incentives. How much is too much, and when does it stop being a good deal for the taxpayers? How do you both think about balancing incentives that truly bring jobs and economic development and accountability? And what do you view as a good deal for the taxpayers?
Some of the things I'd like to touch on that I think we need to consider is, one, what's the tax base that it's bringing? Not just jobs, which are important. What kind of jobs? And I mentioned the pipe fitters. When people were coming in to build a data center, all the trades that are there, and it's going to take 2 to 3 years to build that data center. Well, guess what happens? Google's not going to have a single data center. It's going to have a 3-part data center. It's always going to have redundancy. So those trades go from eastern Oklahoma to northeastern Oklahoma to central Oklahoma in the course of 12 years. So that's virtually a third of a career, and then they can move into another area. So, what's the long-term impact of the jobs opportunity, but also the ad valorem tax base for our state? We need to not give so many incentives that we strip away the ad valorem, because we're injuring the county and school system of those geographic areas.
Yeah, completely agree. And of course, Google's out at MidAmerica, and they'll have 1,000 electricians out there at any one time, and not including all of the mechanical and all of the work that's going in. So it's incredible the amount of input that they have in the local economy and the small businesses in the area, in the region. And it goes deep. It's not shallow. That work goes deep all the way to security, food, everything that they have in order to operate. And that money goes back into the local economy in rural Oklahoma, which is highly needed right now, right? Because these small communities live off sales tax. So that's huge as well. But I think on the incentive side, we got caught up in the whole Volkswagen and the Panasonic and even Canoe. And those were anomalies. Those were in the EV space, and that was kind of a one-time event. We learned from that. Now we're going for singles, doubles, 200 employees, 200 to 300 million investment. I mean, those are things that we can control. The incentive packages are mostly statutory. We do need a fund that can help those smaller companies grow, and maybe even companies that are here already, and then they have a chance to grow. We don't want to forget them, because those are really the core of what makes our economy strong. So we have definitely changed our strategy as a result of that. The $1 billion incentive packages, we're just not geared for that.
I love that you highlight that issue, because we're 4 million strong in Oklahoma, right? We have great strengths, but we need to be self-aware. 4 million citizens would fit inside of 1/2 of Dallas.
Right.
So the workforce and the economic opportunity just across the border to the south is significantly greater than what we have as a state. So instead of going for the whales, in which we've given away incentives for a decade, let's play to our strengths. And that is that 50 employee-based company, the 200 employee base, we can absorb that and make a significant impact on our local communities.
Right. And generally companies, the statutory incentives are great. Oklahoma has a good package, but just a little bit of funds to help them get over the hill and win that. These companies are looking at 50 to 60 sites across the U.S. and we're one of those, generally if they're large. So we see that opportunity. So we just keep making it the cut until we're in the top few. But the way we do that is we're filling gaps with infrastructure, with workforce, and so on. And so I think the strategy would be just like you said, we need that to facilitate those smaller companies, just like we did the bigger companies.
I'm curious, what role does the governor play at the end of those recruitments of companies?
Yeah, generally, once they choose the site, once that we get through workforce, they have 2 or 3 site visits. Then they're looking at the political structure of Oklahoma. And so that would be the point where we would call the governor and say, hey, would you meet? They want to meet the governor and so on. And so we'll introduce them to Speaker of the House and so on, and get them more involved. Those are in the final stages. Once we're down into the 2 or 3 company selection process.
Have we had success these last 8 years?
Some.
Can we improve?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We can always improve.
So we can attract businesses, right? But if the workers can't find affordable housing or childcare, it doesn't seem to matter as much if the quality of life isn't there. So how big of a factor are those issues for site selection when they're looking at a place when it comes to affordable housing, childcare, and other issues?
Like I said before, this puzzle that Oklahoma makes of a good place to live and work and play, it all fits together in a way that makes sense. If you see, it's not a defined, you can't write it down and go, this is it. It's a combination of everything. And Oklahoma has such a good culture, good people. We're generally able to sell that piece of the puzzle. We have a lot of, shoreline, lakes, hunting, fishing. It's just a great place to live. So, sure, we need a little more, right? But I think quality of life, I would give us good remarks. Can we do better to sell it? Yes. We don't do a good job of selling what we had. We got a good product, but we're not really salespeople. We need a strategy of letting people know how good Oklahoma is so that we can have more employees and have more business and so on. So it's kind of a rolling.
I was recently had to dinner a publicly traded CEO and his wife, and he said, I came to Oklahoma as a chief operating officer of this company, and somewhat kicking and screaming. Mm-hmm. What? Oklahoma? Really? Mm-hmm. And he said, we are here. Our children love the school system. We love the community. It's affordable. They've subsequently built a home in the country. They love it. And to hear them speak of the intrinsic value of being in Oklahoma from, as you mentioned, the whole puzzle, all the pieces of the puzzle coming together, he loves it. They're never leaving. He goes, we will retire and die here, right, because of the value of what we see. Now, what we need to do is get people like that, in front of the podcast and broadcasting it to all executives throughout the United States. And we need to do a better job of selling ourselves. Right. We need to embrace our strengths, be aware of our weaknesses and own them, and bring companies in and let them see for themselves how wonderful Oklahoma is.
Right. And that would also help all of our economic developers across the state. Every community has someone that's out marketing the state and they have to sell it. Well, we need to give them the tools because we have all these salespeople out. If they had a sales kit like that, I call it a sales kit, but that's really what it is. You're selling Oklahoma. How do you do that? So we could leverage that as well. So I think we have a lot of infrastructure that could spin off of a program like that because when they go and say, come to Oklahoma, everybody's, I'm not sure. We need to change their mind.
Absolutely.
Well, final question. Dave, if you had to give Oklahoma a grade on its current economic development strategy, workforce, infrastructure, incentives, what would it be and why? And in Gentner, to you as governor, what would you do differently to move us to be a solid A?
Well, I'll start out. We do some things really good. We do some things really bad. And we're okay. Oklahoma's okay in a lot of things. Okay. I want to be that. I know, but we are in some cases, which is fine. But when you combine all of that, you average it out, you end up with a grade. I'm not sure it's bad. It's not great. A lot of things we can work on. But I think our A is our people. We have great people in Oklahoma. And whatever plan we come up with or you come up with as governor, I think we have the people in Oklahoma that want to do the right thing, and they want to get our workforce trained. They want to get people good jobs. So I would give that an A, and I would say we need some work.
There are other areas. No, I'm with you. And so I think what the state just needs is a leader. And I'm not saying that the governor does everything, but the governor has to pick the right people, empower the right people, and own it with them. And I think you're watching, for example, what I've observed Dave Stewart do in MidAmerica this last decade is remarkable. He needs a partner in state government that can bring it all together, that can coalesce the legislative effort behind it, get the funding necessary, not overfund, not overpromise, but have the deliverables there. We need a robust commerce department that works hand in hand with our industries across the state. But we need a leader that is there to close the deal, to work with our talented partners like you, Dave, that brings it all together and then leads the charge.
Dave, thanks so much for joining us this morning and for a wonderful conversation.
Well, I appreciate that, Matt.
Yeah.
Thank you. And Gentner,
Dave,
thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
A big thank you to Dave Stewart for joining us and for showing what real economic development looks like when it's done right. If you're ready to grow Oklahoma's economy, I hope you'll subscribe to Bold Ideas with Gentner Drummond on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your content. And visit drummondok.com to learn more about Gentner's vision, watch past episodes, and get involved in the movement to put Oklahoma first. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
This podcast is authorized and paid for by Friends of Gentner Drummond 2026.